Folks, when everyone welcome aboard and when everyone stand for the pledge, Kevin, would you lead us, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Welcome to tonight's meeting. We'll get started with the tonight's agenda. Mr. Tenelli.
I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the regular board meeting agenda for May 7th, 2023.
All right. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? All right. Thank you. The minutes.
I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the regular board meeting minutes for April 24th, 2023.
Second. Okay, everybody okay with that? Yeah. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Unanimous, thank you. And which brings us right to the student report. Jana, you're up.
It's a very short one this week. I think there's more for middle school than there is high school. For high school, the Earthwise Club went on their first outing this past Saturday to Ellerins Park in Mount Morris. Students worked to cook breakfast on camping stoves, walked the trails, and began to explore the process of nature journaling. Sports for this week really depends on the weather, as you can tell.
Yeah.
But currently, varsity track is running their hearts out, throwing as much as they can against Perry. Our spring concert season's finally here with our first concert being banned on May 4th. And then for middle school, let's see, I have to switch documents. The 6th grade spring flower sale fundraiser went really well. It was the first one since COVID, and the students sold over 400 flowers. The 6th grade students have 2 year-end field trips scheduled. June 16th, they're going to Seabreeze, and June 20th, they're going to Bristol Mountain Aerial Adventures. The trip to Seabreeze we have done for years, but this is the 2nd year for taking the students to Bristol Mountain. Last year's class really enjoyed the outing, so like Seabreeze, we will incorporate it into our year-end plans whenever possible. It's really neat. May 25th, during periods 6, 7, and 8, the students in grades 6 through 8 will participate in 2 activities of their choosing during 6th and 7th period. During 8th period, class time, funding has been secured by both the PTSA and the Geneseo Central Education Fund to have James Warren, a magician, perform for all of the middle school students in the auditorium during 8th period. Any questions?
Short and concise.
Well done.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Great. Great. Okay, we have a presentation. Betsy and Tennessee in the mountain.
Hello, everybody. Good evening. Thank you for having us. I just wanted to thank parents, wonderful students, coaches, staff, faculty, wonderful custodians really supporting us in the MIND program. We wouldn't be able to do what we've been able to do because of that support. Here we have an opportunity to go to World Odyssey of the Mind trip to Worlds. This year I started off with 6 teams. I had 1 primary that was coached by our retired secondary teacher, Ann Miller, who it was a pleasure to have her back to co-coach, and she co-coached with my daughter Zoe, and they had a wonderful time with 5 first and second graders. And they performed at regional competition, and they just were wonderful. They had just a joy on their faces. They worked really well as a team. The first grade, second grade teachers had recommended these students, and they were phenomenal. So both Ann Miller and my daughter had just a wonderful time coaching that. We had an elementary Division I vehicle team that I happened, as well as coordinating this, I happened to be a co-coach for that team. I had some amazing 4th grade kids and 5th grader. They're full of energy. It was exhausting, dealing with both being a coordinator and juggling being a coach. It was really hard. And that team at regionals, they made 3rd place. I was really proud of them. They held up their, their trophy, and they were just so pleased with what they did. They built a ride-on vehicle. It didn't work, but I had 1 student, her name, Ruthie McCauley. She's like, go with plan B. If it doesn't work, I'm just going to drag it to the 2 places that they had to perform certain things. And she was great. They're all great. So I was really proud. It made going to states a lot easier for me because I was able to focus on the 4 other teams that made it. So we had a middle school technical team. We had a high school Division III vehicle team. We had a high school structure team. The technical team placed 4th. The vehicle division 3 team placed 2nd. Our structure team placed 6th. And our division 2 vehicle team placed 6th. So we had some 4 that made top 10. Only the top 3 can make it to Worlds. And my vehicle 3 team got 2nd place, and they were really wonderful. So last year was the first time having an in-person regional, state, and Worlds. We're lucky again this year to be able to attend all 3 competitions in person. My high school vehicle division team, ours, is a combination of a world champion performance. Morgan, do you want to just raise your hand that you were the performance team last year? And the 3 other team members were vehicle 2, and they came in 6th place.
Yeah.
And so they've been an amazing team. They have an innovative solution to the problem. They also have to build a ride-on vehicle. We have a talking kidney, a talking wisdom tooth, and an appendix that was built by Sam Tarenko, who could not make it. He's our senior. And then we have another student, Ollie Hallquist, who's an 8th grader, and she couldn't make it. But you guys want to introduce yourselves, like who you are, your experience?
Sure. Hi, my name's Noah French. I have been doing Odyssey since kindergarten, so this is my 10th year now. Yes, I have been doing vehicle ever since I've gotten to the competition level. And I've been to Worlds in person twice before, online twice during COVID, and it'd be great to go again. So yeah, that's my Odyssey experience.
Hi, my name is Sam Vilgich. I've been doing Odyssey for 5 to 6 years now. In my first year, I did technical, and ever since that year, I did vehicle. And I've been to Odyssey once. I mean, OM once. I mean, no, Worlds.
Hi, my name's Abby Fowler, and I've been doing Odyssey for 8 years. My first year since I've been able to compete, I've been doing classics, and then I did performance. And then after that, I really found that the vehicle team was the best for me. And I've been able to go to World Finals 4 times since then, 2 in person.
I'm Morgan Curry. I've done Odyssey since 2nd grade. I'm a junior. I've done all problems except for balsa and classics, just like randomly. I've been to Worlds altogether, I think 7 times, and I won the last 2 years. Like to do that again.
We do have 2 out of 3 coaches, Sherry Curry and Jeff Curry. And Mr. French, Brian French, has been the vehicle coach for since you're probably kindergarten, would you say?
He's been my coach since kindergarten, so yeah, pretty much.
Yes, okay. And like I said, Sam Tarenko is a senior. He couldn't make it. He's been doing it since 3rd grade. So I think this is 10th year. And then Ollie Hallquist is in 8th grade. We moved her up to fill the number of students to meet, the number of students for this team. We learned today we've got our schedule. So if we make it to Worlds, our competition is on Thursday and Friday. And you're going to be one of 39 teams. And we're going to be competing against Germany, South Korea, Hong Kong, and Poland, which is pretty neat. Poland is a very strong team. They're pretty amazing. So we're really looking forward to that. You guys want to do the trophies or do you want to hold on to them? You want to hold on to them? I think Morgan has been, I've been wondering where they were. So this is regionals and states, very cool. Let me see here. So we have been practicing, at least the students were practicing at least 175 to 200 hours outside of their academic and extracurricular activities, just to perform for how many minutes, you guys? 8 minutes. So it's just really amazing. I think they're so successful, so they work so well together as a team. That really is hard, as you know, being on a board, probably working with other teams, really working together. They're just really phenomenal, really amazing. And that's pretty much it. If you guys have any questions for the kids or for me?
Are you ready for Michigan?
Yeah.
So Noah, do you want to ask the question?
Sure. We would like permission to go to World Finals at Michigan State University, please.
Sure. So I'd like to entertain a motion to the Board of Education to approve the Odyssey for their trip to Michigan State University. May 24th to 27th.
To the 27th, we're returning on the 28th, Sunday.
Returning on the 28th.
Second. Questions or comments from the board on the motion?
Just a comment, I did have an opportunity to go to regionals this year and just watching the problem solving and creativity when or if something goes wrong is always impressive. And it's always great to watch the
They're
performance.
on their toes when something, we've had some teams with a broken vehicle. I know State's vehicle too had their steering mechanism was broken and they spent a couple hours at Syracuse fixing it before they performed. So really think a lot on their toes and
It's carrying you a long way.
yes, yes.
Skills we learn in Odyssey are just amazing. You know, learning the stage presence and learning how to talk to adults, learning how to work in a group setting and the technical and doing everything yourselves. As far as, you know, the scenery and the skit and everything. So congratulations on your success so far and good luck at Worlds.
You make us proud.
Yeah, good luck.
Thank you, everybody.
Any other questions? Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Have a good time.
Thank you. Good night. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to administrative updates. Mr. Van Epps, update from the elementary building.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. The elementary students that typically report after they could table their presentation until next time. Because they had a state test, so they thought it was a lot of work already. So actually their schedule got switched, so they had PE and they chose PE over building a presentation. So no offense. Yeah, they're getting their costumes ready. So the last couple of times that I've given an update, I have shown this infographic here, and all of our conversations at the elementary building have referred back to this. We're currently in the process of fine-tuning, finalizing our mission statement for the elementary building that hopefully I'll be able to present, if not at the end of this year, at the beginning of next year. It's been a process that the entire team has come together and really unpacked who we are as people, who we are as staff members, who our students are, and how we can use all of those pieces together to make sure that we're building the best experience for our students. So all of the professional development and work that we've done throughout the year have anchored back into these three focus areas. And I just want to talk through a couple of the updates that we've been participating in. Curriculum and assessment. We've done a lot this year in looking at what we're currently doing and not getting the cart too far ahead of the horse, knowing that we are looking at a curriculum review cycle coming up as part of the strategic plan. We started to look at our math learning progressions, and I have a team of 10 teachers who have been staying after school once every other week to unpack the K-5 math standards, and we've built a progression of learning that if I was to print it off and put it, it would probably go from one wall to the other. It is every math standard broken down into individual skills, and it creates a long ladder of skills for students. And what we hope to do with that is not only embed them into our curriculum documents, but we can use those as anchors when we look at individual students and the gaps that they have. So in giving some sort of benchmark assessment, we could say, Johnny fell off course here. These are all the steps that he needs or gaps that we have to fill to get him to that next checkpoint. So it'll be a extremely beneficial tool as we look towards refining those curriculum documents. We also had a group of 5 teachers from our intermediate side of the building go to Monroe 2 BOCES for science investigations training. Next spring, 5th and 8th graders will participate in the new New York State science exams. And by the time those assessments are in play, students will need to participate in 4 different investigations. Every student in New York State will need to participate in those before they reach that 5th grade exam. So we have these 5 teachers go and explore those investigations and the materials that would be needed. It's gonna be a big overhaul on the district side, because if we have students move into the district that haven't experienced those before, we need to make sure that we catch them up prior to that assessment, so that 5th grade year will be busy for them. And they'll have a benchmark again in 8th grade as well. And we're looking at our BOCES supports to get some kits and resources at the K-5 level to support, so that when our students get to that 3rd grade investigation, they're prepared to work through some of that independently. Our data review cycle, we've really been looking at systems over goals. If we go back to September, super zealous and looking at individual goals for the building. We kind of slowed down a little bit, and we said, as team leaders, what are some systems that we need to refine? So we looked at how we review data using an audit process to ensure that we are indicating needs, not just for students, but also for teachers, and what are we missing in our instruction to make sure that our students are meeting all the necessary standards that we have in place for them, but also pulling out those students who have specific gaps and meeting those needs on an individual basis. So we've been looking at our 2 benchmarks with iReady in math and reading, but also our really great reading screeners, which look at the foundational reading gaps. The next piece is our high leverage instructional practices. How are we teaching, and how are we hooking our students to make sure that they're engaged? 2 big initiatives that we've been participating in is the Writing Revolution. It is an intermediate focus. How do we get kids engaged with writing in all content areas? But we have a session coming up with a coach out of BOCES looking at our primary level grades, and how do we get kids engaged in writing in the content areas at the lower grade levels. And then that really great reading resource that we utilize for our foundational reading skills, our phonics instruction. We actually had a coach come in, and she worked with our kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade teachers, watched some of their lessons, and then unpacked in a little coaching cycle with them. And we'll come back one other session to continue with some of that coaching experience to help fine tune that process. In that, they gave us some free resources too, which was a pretty nice special treat for those teachers that did participate. Looking at the differentiation piece, we talked about what are we doing currently, what is the data telling us about our practices, not just what we're teaching, but how we're teaching it. We've had some great conversations looking from a data perspective on the design of our building, the design of our teams, and the design of our schedule, master schedule. So those conversations have started or did start back in January, and they continue to take place. Our master schedule committee is 15 different staff members that range from all content areas. And we really have been looking at data to make some really important decisions. Some simple things like, what does lunch look like? We have a lot of data based on student interactions in lunch. Kids don't take a long time to eat lunch. So we've been looking at what would it look like if we had a shortened lunchtime? How do we then make sure that our staff is getting the necessary time that they need? Our homeroom-based model, we are returning to a homeroom-based model for 5th grade next year. We found that looking at data over the last couple of years, a departmentalized model wasn't meeting our students' social emotional well-being and the needs that they have. So we're returning back to a homeroom-based model next year to support that initiative, as well as looking at K-5 level of going to an integrated co-teaching model. So we did have a couple grade levels where the special education teacher was split between a couple grades, and we found that we weren't able to meet the needs of all of our students in a way that was necessary. So having one teacher at each grade level, kind of like a marriage between a gen ed teacher and a special ed teacher, will help with that necessary component of meeting all students' needs, not just special education, but also some of our gen ed students as well. The last piece is the whole child learning, and we've talked a lot about social emotional learning, and I wanted to connect it to our RTI framework. So when I started, I had mentioned looking at systems over goals, and one of the systems that we looked at fine-tuning this year specifically is our RTI framework at the elementary building, and how we will utilize data to support a system, looking at individual students' needs, gaps that they have, and then what resources are we providing for them to support them. We're looking at our benchmarks as a district, but at the building level, we're doing that through our team leaders. We have trials of the character ed curriculum that we've talked about in Character Strong. But then on the last piece, John, if you can just switch to the next slide. We've been looking at this tiered model of intervention, which you may have seen this before, or you may not. But this is an MTSS model where we often see it looking like a pyramid. What we've done this year is we flipped that upside down. And we want to look at more from this model. In the other model, you would say our kids are working up towards tier 3 level. And our goal here at the elementary building is to continue to put in some strainers so that less kids are falling to the bottom. And in that, we've really been able to create a system where we have checks and balances along the way. One more time. That aren't just in math and reading, but this year we've included some tier 2 and tier 3 systems for counseling, OT, PT, and speech. So we've looked at a building-based model to ensure that less kids are making it to that tier 3 level of intervention, hopefully leading to less students then being classified in the end. So a lot of work. What you have here is a kind of a shared writing, shared brainstorming piece that we developed as a building, looking at all of our tiers of intervention, the who, the what, the why, the when. And a piece that I pointed out that's really important that the teachers came up with was that tier 1 instruction needs to meet the needs of 80 to 90% of our students. What we found is the original number of students that were listed for our RTI model here was way beyond that number. So we had 25 to 30% of our students who were falling in the tier 2 and tier 3. Red flag, we need to go back and look at our tier 1 instruction, which brings us back to the beginning. And if that were me coming in saying, hey, new principal, new guy, we need to look at tier 1 instruction, right? They would throw me out the door. But in this process, they've been able to say, wow, we actually need to do something with our tier 1 instruction to make sure that less kids are in this space. We're now at a point where we have 104 students who are receiving intervention in all 5 areas, but we've exited 22 students since this process started. In the last 2 years, they haven't had a student exit RTI. So we feel really good about the process. Making small, tangible goals has allowed us to see some progress, and we hope that continues over the next few years. Any questions?
Return to homeroom?
Yeah.
For 5th grade only, is that a pilot? Is that?
Sure, we can call it a pilot. I know that's been something they've done in the past. And in looking at the data that we have, the amount of time that teachers were providing direct instruction to our 5th graders was about 2 hours and 15 minutes. Compared to our 4th and below, that's over 3.5 hours of direct instruction. And they were squeezing, trying to take math and science and squeeze them into one block of time. So when we talk about adding in investigations and labs and things that are coming down from the state, social studies will be having them as well. There just isn't enough time to get all of that in there. With the gap time that we have where students get band, orchestra, and chorus in the middle of their day, not after school time, that impacts our 5th graders as well. So yeah, let's follow the pilot. We'll collect more data to see if they're able to hit the social emotional learning benchmarks that they need to. And with the addition of our win time that we have, as well as some of these increases in curriculum, where we're trying to integrate more of the social studies and science into the ELA, we're able to be more successful at creating a more successful tier 1 system for our kids. We did a whole SWOT analysis, right? Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of a different model. And one of the things that kept coming up is we really want to prepare our kids for 6th grade. And I said, okay. So we can take a walk around the building, they can meet their teachers. Them switching classes wasn't enough of a sell when looking at what we can really gain from going back to a homework-based model. One of the big weaknesses was inability to create strong bonds with kids. They had sometimes 3 or 4 teachers in 5th grade, and they're longing for that one connection still. So they have many other teachers that they connect with through special areas and WIN and GAP. So but we felt like preparing for 6th grade, we can do in different ways.
A question, when you talked about going to having special ed teacher at each grade level, do we have the staff to be able to do that already? Or does that?
Yeah, great question. So we currently do, the way that this year was set up based on the numbers of students that were, that did come in with IEPs, there were students that had a resource room as part of their IEP program. And in that, we're aiming to keep resource room as a support for those students, but that resource room can be done in the classroom. So we are able to take that resource room staff member and put them into one of the grade levels, so there'll be one at each grade level. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Great. Thank you, appreciate it.
Also gotta say, teachers are working their tails off. Teacher Appreciation Week next week. Props to them.
We'll take care of it. Thank you for that. Mr. Salito, before I put you on, I want to thank you for coming. On behalf of the board, I know I don't want to say too much, but I know you've got some significant health issues in your family, and I hope it's going well. And we appreciate you taking time out to come and meet with us.
Thank you. I
Thank you.
appreciate everybody's support and staff, Craig, John, everybody really stepped up. So, yeah.
Oh,
Sure. Well, I'll be brief about that. So, but I do appreciate the kind words, and I know the family member does as well.
good. Okay.
I just basically have two topics that I wanted to talk a little bit about tonight. One being graduation rates. It was brought to me that it's good to share the information about potentially where we're going to be at this year. Where have we been in the past? So you have a little chart that goes back to 2015. And the first column, if you see it, it says middle school, high school. And basically what that means is those are students that are currently in our building. And then you had the district number on there. And the district number means students that may be in outside placements. They're still our students, but they're considered placed in a different educational program. So right now, as we look at where our current numbers are, and it's interesting over the years, as many of you know, Geneseo has performed traditionally well in meeting the needs of students and getting them to meet the New York State Education Department graduation guidelines. This year, right now, we're at about 95%. And out of the students that right now we know are not going to make it, 66% of those students are students that either transferred in to us or came to us, left, came back, had a lot of interrupted education in their years. We have tried every educational program while we have them here, and it basically boils down to attendance. Attendance is the biggest thing, to be able to try to get them in the building. And we use multiple incentives to try to do that, work with them and what to really try to get the hook. What is your best program, or what educational opportunities would give you that incentive to come to school on a consistent basis? Many conversations with parents of the students, and although they try to do their best, obviously when students get to a certain age in those teenage years, they have a mind of their own, and even with the parents trying to push us having multiple meetings, at the end of the day, they just refuse to come. Some of us that are old like me remember the days that there were so many outside agencies you can go to, and they really have some teeth in the game to get students to school. That's really not the case anymore. You can try contacting outside agencies, but once a student gets a certain age, there's really nothing you can do to force them to come. I've done multiple home visits, like I said, parent support, which just, and they're students that I have good relationship with. They just don't feel need to come to school. Some of it is directly related to the pandemic. We do see some of that. As many of you know, there was a year or two where education or attending school really was a choice, because they're either out or they're in a hybrid, and that kind of, those bad habits, once they got out of routine, were very difficult to get a student that struggles academically to get back in a routine. And that's really been challenging for us. That number could change, and not for the better. As we really work hard over these next 2 months to get students to meet the graduation requirement. That's going to take some work, and our staff has done a remarkable job of communicating with parents and making themselves available and being very flexible to allow students to get work in so where they can be passing. So that number could change. The 90% is where we really want to make sure we stay above that. And we'll do our best to do that. But there's also integrity and then ethics involved with that. We are not going to give something to a student that hasn't earned it. And that's very important, because I know through the pandemic, there were a lot of gifts given out, right? Everyone kind of got credit You didn't have to take an exam, you could barely pass, barely do any work. We're not gonna do that, and the staff is wonderful about that, because they understand that, you know, you sign an oath, and these students need to earn the degree. We will help you get there. Show up, work hard, and you'll be able to meet the graduation requirements. Some students are really on the border. And that's something we'll put much of our effort in. Communication has gone home to parents of students that are on that borderline. Each student will be meeting with me. We'll develop a plan and do our best to make sure the students follow through with it. I do want to highlight one piece. There may be people that walk, students that walk at graduation, that technically haven't completed all the requirements. What I mean by that, so if they failed, say, an English 12 course, and if they did not pass that course, we will allow them to graduate if they have the opportunity, attend graduation, I should say, if they have the opportunity to complete that over the summer. So they may, you people in the audience may see them get a diploma. That's a blank diploma. They don't get that until they complete their work in August. But because there's not a separate ceremony in August, we do try to honor them at that point to allow them to walk. If a student is mathematically or not able to complete, so they're failing 3 courses, we know they can only get 2 done in summer school, they will not be walking, because technically there's no way they can get that done by the end of August. Questions as it relates to that. So right now we're at a 95%. We're hoping to keep it there, but I want to be very transparent that that number could change. It won't be due to lack of effort. And like I said, staff will go out of their way. And this year we've really balanced and had to deal with a lot of things. Medical, notes, and students out of school are at an all-time high. You have students that basically attend school on a limited basis. And once you get the medical documentation, there's really not a lot of school can do except try to support them with tutors and all that. But there's nothing comparable to a student being in a class each and every day. I mean, a tutor for a couple hours a day isn't going to get you where you need to be. But we do our best for that. Questions as it relates to graduation and our rates. But as you can see, we've had years where we had 100% back in 2019. That was just a great year. 2021, I'm going to give a little bit of that to COVID, because I think a lot of students are giving gifts back then, but we've always been right around that, at least 95 or higher. And we'll aim to do that this year, but just want to be very fair and say potential is they could get lower. What happens with that? It gets reported to the state. It's a 1-year thing. They really don't do much, but if not, they may send you, tell us to put a plan together. But to me, it's not about what the state says. It's about what's best for our students and supporting them, and also having integrity to what New York State earning that diploma is all about. All right. No questions. I'll move on. Course is not offered next year. I do want to give you a little heads up that there are some courses as we went through our enrollment process and students signing up for courses. But you have a list in front of you. I'll go down the list, and if you have any questions at the end, please feel free to ask them. High school computer applications. We have about a half dozen or more computer style classes that we offer, whether it's graphic arts, but others. This is a course that rarely we do get enough to sign up for, because they sign up for other computer courses, and you can't offer everything. And when the numbers are right around 3 or 4, we're not going to use part of a teacher schedule for that when there's other opportunities. So the 3 or 4 that may have signed up for this will sign up for one of the other ones, but that's typically every year we'll have one of those courses that we don't offer. Middle school sampler, what we're not going to offer next year, because with the intention of transitioning French out, there would be no point in having a sampler for students next year. I know Livonia is going through the same thing. They're transitioning French out as well. So we won't have that. That'll create a 10-week opportunity for us for 6th graders. And we'll look, I'm going to meet with a team of teachers to develop what's the best way to use those 10 weeks. Could be technology skills, quite honestly, if we're seeing some gaps that we need. But I want to have a good, thoughtful conversation with all the key stakeholders of what that 10 weeks. And basically, for those of you, I'm sure you know from your child that there's a 10-week wheel is what we call it. So there'll be 10 weeks of music, 10 weeks of this, 10 weeks of that. So we'll have 10 weeks of open space, and we're gonna figure out how to best utilize those 10 weeks in the wheel. French 1, we'll transition that out. High school introduction to healthy living is just an extra health class that we added in there as an elective, and we didn't get enough enrollment to have it this year. We'll keep it in the course guide, and in the future, we can certainly look at offering that, but students still get their health that they would typically get. Biochemical and environmental science, again, we have a number of science electives, applied physics, and other courses that just was low enrollment because students sign up for other things, but we like to keep it in there just in case one year you get a group of students that are interested in that. AP biology for next year, and the only reason for that is a number of years ago, we made the transition where we're gonna rotate AP biology, AP chemistry each year, just because we don't have enough students to typically offer both at the same time. So students still get the opportunity to get AP biology. This year they're taking it, and then next year, after next year, the next group will be able to take it, but through their high school years, they'll definitely be able to sign up for it. And then another thing we're looking at eliminating from the schedule, and we're not sure what we're gonna call it, but it's middle school study skills. And basically, for lack of better words, it's been a study hall. And as we get into SEL initiatives and other initiatives that we think are very important for our school, we want to create a good program that teaches a wide range of things instead of like a study hall for middle schoolers. Over the years, you see that homework has been debatable for years and years. What's the benefit of homework? So at the middle level, there really isn't all that much homework. So what can we best use that time for? And when we start talking about SEL, because right now the schedule's so tight, we don't have time for a lot of those initiatives. So we can do a lot of things in there with Character Strong, other initiatives that we're going to look at. All right. I brought up the French with the intention of eliminating French. Know that we are planning on transitioning any student that's in the program now out. What I mean by that for next year, we'll be offering French 1B, then French 3, French 4, French 5. The year after that, we won't need 1B. We'll have to do 3, 4, and 5. After that, you won't have to do 3, it'll be 4 and 5. There may be a possibility, and one of the reasons why a lot of schools are not even offering French anymore, there's just not any certified instructors out there for it. So the potential to get someone is limited. We may run into, if we have a retirement, which we know is coming soon, that we don't have anyone to teach in 2-3 years down the road from that. And then we'll just have to look at other opportunities, whether it's through Accelerate U, or if we look at colleges with some dual classes there. Any questions related to
The last comment there, you touched on my concern.
Yep.
What options are they for those who do want to take languages, whether it's French or any other language?
Yeah.
You know what I teach, so
Yes,
from that
yeah.
perspective, I'd like to
Yeah.
see some plan in place, whatever it is, and communicate it appropriately.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, a number of years ago, we looked at offering a different language, Mandarin, because we have a number of families that actually travel to Brighton every Saturday to take it. So we always encourage students, and we partner with colleges when we can to encourage them. Hey, if you're really interested in this, let's figure out a way to make it work. Accelerate U has been a good opportunity for us, and John's been part of that and did a great job getting our students signed up for different courses. So there will be opportunity to answer your question, and we'll communicate that out, especially if there's a need and a desire. Okay, any other questions?
Just out of curiosity, back 100 years ago, French 3 was the Regents. Is it still now?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
it. Yeah, basically.
All
Yep.
right.
That's what you have to get through, basically, is what colleges look at. And for also your Regents to advanced. Yep. Any other questions? Again, I want to thank you for all your support. We got a busy month and a half here, but we'll pull through. And if there are any questions, feel free to reach out. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, next. Superintendent's report. And a couple of guests.
Absolutely. So at some point in the presentation tonight, Mr. Stephen Geen will join. He is an environmental engineer who will help us break down some of the results and answer the questions that we had posed from community members throughout our survey from the update last week. You know, one of the things that we have joked about is that the gym has caused us many headaches this year. One of the things that we have never joked about, and it has always taken very seriously, is the safety of our students and staff throughout this process. Over the summer, when we were made aware that the block walls were no longer safe, we immediately closed the gym and took efforts to have remedial pieces put in place. When the gym floor flooded and the floor started to buckle and it was unsafe, we immediately closed down that space so that a staff or student member was not hurt. And in this situation, we've continued to do so. And in every decision that I make, that I know the board supports, the safety and security of our staff and students is at first and foremost in all of our minds. And, you know, I typically try to keep my personal perspective out of this, but I also have 2 children who are in this school and are in that space. And I have the same standard for your children as I do for mine. And I would never do anything to harm those 2 boys on that screen. So when you look at the timeline of events, we know in December of 27 that the pool chlorinator malfunctioned and caused the gym floor to flood. In January of 2023, the wooden floor started to buckle and a portion of the gym was closed. In January of 2023, we contacted our insurance company because we anticipated this being an insurance claim and that we would have the floor replaced. In April, we decided to replace the floor over the break so we'd have the least amount of disruption to our classes, or at least that was what the plan and the hope was. As they were removing the wooden floor, we became aware that there was a synthetic flooring underneath that original wood floor. And at that point, on April 10th, when students and staff returned from the break, we stopped the construction process and requested that the testing be completed by Paradigm Environmental. On April 17th, the testing was completed by Paradigm Environmental, and we received the results on April 24th, late in the afternoon. It was between 4 and 5 p.m. before the board meeting. At that point, the floor had tested positive for mercury, and we reached out to Geen Engineering for consultation and next steps. So when you look at the next slide, you'll see, and that is difficult to see, but it was included in the community update, that there really is a flow chart that was included in a March 21, 2023 memo from the New York State Department of the DEC, the New York State DOH, and the State Education Department. And what the purple flow chart says is that if there is known or suspected resilient floor and user top layer, if there's mercury known or suspected in that top floor, so what that would have been our wood floor, what steps we would have taken. That wasn't the case for us because we were suspecting that the mercury was contained in the subfloor. So then we move to the next flow chart, which again is provided to us from the New York State Department of Health, DEC, and the State Education Department. And if it's uncertain, you follow the flow chart down on the right side. The top flooring is in good shape. There's no excessive wear or damage, and there's minimal penetrations. If that is the case, then we do an optional screen for mercury vapor at penetrations to consider increasing ventilation if the screening finds mercury vapor is present, which is what we did. So the one thing that I really want to highlight here is that we were not required to move forward with mercury screening, but out of an abundance of caution, we did. And then when we do know, you go to the left side again. So we know that there is mercury present in the floor and the top floor is in good shape. There's no excessive wear or damage with minimal penetrations. Again, consider screening for mercury vapor at penetrations and consider increasing ventilation if screening finds mercury vapor is present. So one of the things that we did, we opened all the outer air drafts and We didn't at that point increase the HVA systems because that was always a major disruption for our PE staff. It's very hard to talk over, it can be loud in there, but we did open up the outer air drafts at 100%, which does increase the ventilation at that point. So we continue to follow our safety precautions. We followed all New York State DOH, New York State DEC, New York State Ed guidance. We consulted, every school district is required to have a medical director. Dr. Collins is our medical director. He is also the Commissioner of Public Health and Medical Director of Wyoming County. We consulted with him throughout this process. When the floor tested positive for mercury, the recommendation was to consider mercury vapor testing, and that vapor testing was completed on May 1st. We will continue to follow the guidance from the New York State DOH, DEC, and NICET in conjunction with support from our industry experts. Mr. Dean is here to talk about that later. And just, you know, I really felt it was important to really hear from the medical expert what their recommendations, and in consultation with Dr. Collins, he said at these levels, there is negligible health risk to students and staff. The levels in conjunction with the mitigation steps that have been implemented, primarily related to air quality and improved ventilation, are sufficient to reduce risks to our school community. I think that's a very powerful statement that our own medical director confirmed that there was very minimal risk to our staff and students. So we did send out a communication to the community, and we asked for anyone who had concerns or specific questions to please provide them. We did hear from 3 community members. And in the meantime, from that communication, we also were able to get our mercury vapor testing completed. And the chart that you are seeing is a chart that the Pediatric Environmental Health Society, or excuse me, Health Specialty Unit has completed. And you can see that very small sliver of green on the left. That is the permissible levels of mercury in schools. The chart shows you that the red dot, that is the occupied side of the gym. So there were 243 nanograms per cubic meter on average when they did the sample on Monday. On the unoccupied side, where the rubberized floor was exposed, the results indicated 743 nanograms per cubic meter. Again, all falling within the permissible levels that have been provided to us throughout that memo, as well as through the pediatric. And I don't know, Mr. Dean, was there anything you wanted to add to this slide or conversation?
No, I don't think so.
So I really did want Steve to talk about what that meant in regards to the 750 nanograms level, as well as there's also a component of time-weighted average, meaning how long you're in that space being exposed to that level. And so could you just take an opportunity to explain the time-weighted average?
Sure. Time-weighted averages are used in all kinds of industries to make sure that people that are exposed to contaminants in a workplace setting are not exposed to too much, not only for peak times, but the average over the day. And so the 750 is assumption that it's 750 all day long. And we know from the testing we've done that it's less than 300, which is actually what EPA says is an acceptable level for chronic exposure. So if someone had a spill of mercury in their house, it was cleaned up and the levels were below 300, EPA would say, you're okay. You're not going to, the lifetime exposure at less than 300 should not cause any elevated levels of disease. So in this case, the DEC regulations are based on a 40-hour work week for the people that are teaching, the gym teachers in this case, and a 16-hour week for the children. I don't think that either of those are ever approached. The gym teachers, while they're here for a full day, that not all of that is spent in the gym. Same with the students, they're not in the gym 3 hours a day. So their exposure would be less than you would think based on just the 750 nanograms per cubic meter. The level actually would work out to a much lower exposure than that.
Any point of the board has questions throughout this presentation, please let us know. So this is one of the questions. Wasn't the rubber flooring exposed last time the floor was replaced 6 or 7 years ago? And yes, the flooring was replaced in 2015. At that time, testing of the floor material was not recommended or required. The memo that we have been referring to that is providing this guidance, that has provided the flow charts as well as the 750 nanograms per cubic meter, was published this year, March 21st in 2023. So it is a very new memo, very new regulations, and we are doing everything we can to comply with those new regulations. Another parent wants to know that why we were basically still continuing to use the gym. Was there an issue? And really, again, the mitigating factor is to increase ventilation, and this has been done. And at no point throughout this process in communicating with New York State DOH, communicating with our medical director, has a recommendation to keep students or staff out of this space. The other question was, John heard of that as being, when the presence of mercury is suspected in a gymnasium floor, should PE classes continue to be held in the gym? What factors go into making a determination to continue or discontinue classes? Please address this in terms of risk faced with both staff and students. Faculty, how important is it for a school to be in contact with the DOH when the presence of mercury is suspected in a gymnasium floor? And I really think the presentation has shown that based on the mercury vapor amounts, as well as the mitigating strategies that were taking place, there were minimal health risks. And again, if you go back to what our physician said, negligible to minimal health risk based on those levels. And we did cooperate and communicate with all of the outside agencies to make sure that we were following our safety guidelines. Steve, is there anything to add to that, or do you think that we covered that piece?
Covered it very well, thank you.
Next steps. So one of the things that is mentioned in that recent memo is the conversation about schools are no longer allowed to cover a floor with mercury in it. So the question that we have posed, and still to this day have not heard a question back from the New York State Department of Health, is the repair that we are currently trying to implement covering a mercury floor, knowing that in 1 to 2 years, we will be in a major capital project and most likely demoing that space? Or is a repair not considered installing a floor over the mercury vapor floor, and can we proceed with that repair? So that is really what the next step is. We are continuing to keep those outdoor air dampers wide open to increase the ventilation. And at some point, I have to believe that the weather is going to turn around and we're not going to have hail and snow and all the other awful weather that we've had, and our students can return. But that is the process, that's the steps that we've taken. And, I really feel that we were faced with this situation. We met it head on, following all safety and security protocols, making sure that our students and staffs were safe throughout the process. Mr. Van Epps mentioned next week, Teacher Appreciation Week, and he's right. We have an amazing staff that is working extremely hard, and so PTSA is going to do a special act every day for our teachers. The admin team is putting together a few fun things for our staff. I heard Mr. Dwyer say, we'll be doing something as a board. So on behalf of myself and the Board of Education, thank you for everything that you do for our students. And Allison, please spread the word. Upcoming events, as we heard earlier, we do have our band concert season starting, And so on May 4th, we do have our band concert. We do have our SAT exams on May 6th and our K2 chorus concert on May 11th. Always a district favorite is the K2 chorus concert. May 16th, we do have our budget vote, so please come out and vote at our auditorium. And then also that same day is our K through 12 district art show. So, any questions?
I'd just like to make a brief comment. This afternoon, I got on my email to check the agenda for tonight. There was a note there from some members of the community, parents, was addressed to the board regarding the issue with the gym. And I was kind of surprised to see that Mrs. Flowers was not on the distribution list. The way governance is set up in New York on school districts, the superintendent is the CEO. She's the go-to person. I forwarded this thoughtful letter to Mrs. Flowers, and she will take appropriate action. But just a reminder that any issues, concerns should be addressed to her. We have complete confidence in her. As she pointed out, she nor the board would ever jeopardize the safety of our students. And one other interesting point, that the floor that we're talking about, that was the original floor that was installed in 1973. I think it was fashionable then, those rubber floors. And that was our floor for the first 25 years or so, as was a similar floor in the small gym that was replaced, if my memory's right, about 2010. Don't remember any issues that was pointed out. This is the second time the wood floor has been replaced. Don't remember any issues then. You know, in thinking about the facilities around town, the alumni field house at the college, or as I call it, Merritt's building, that gym has a rubberized floor that's been there since, I think that opened in the early and mid 70s. Maybe Mr. Levy knows better. But I know the college has a health and safety office that's all they do. And I have to think if there were issues with that floor, action would have been taken, but apparently it's okay. So, so that's all I have to say. We're happy to receive any comments, good or bad. Please address them through Mrs. Flowers. If you'd like to copy in us, that's fine too. And thank you for that. All right, moving along to community relations. We have okay. Matt and Lori, you're up.
I just want to say a couple things about communication. I do appreciate the presentation tonight about mercury levels and getting a little bit more information. I wanted to share that part of my frustration, as well as other parents I know in the community about the whole gym, was that, you know, it was found out on before April 10th, according to this presentation, that there was possibility of mercury in the gym floor. My kids came back to school on April 10th, and as far as I know, kids were in the gym until April 24th, when testing results were received. So at that point, nobody knew if there was mercury. Nobody knew what the levels were. So as a parent, I think you should have not had kids in the gym. That's my personal opinion. And it was a beautiful week that week. I don't know if anyone remembers, it was 70 and 80 degrees. It was beautiful. They could have been outside. They could have been on a new turf that we spent lots of money at. Just saying. The other thing I'd like to say is that I was very disappointed when my husband found this at the post office the other day. We received it in the mail yesterday, and it still is showing 3 write-in candidates. It does not have Matt Malver's name or Don Ellis's name on it. I know there is the board and community members have talked about before, trying to get this out to people before the budget hearing, and I understand that that's important. I do think that's a really important thing. But somehow in the future, this needs to be fixed, that people's names should be in here, or there should be some type of statement saying, please go to our website, blah, 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 so people can get information about board candidates. Because when people volunteer their personal time, as you all do, you know, this is, you're not getting paid, you're volunteering your personal time. There was nobody running, there were 3 spots, and 2 people stepped up to volunteer their personal time. It's going to take away from their families, and they're not even listed in this, and it goes out to everybody in the community. They went to people's houses, they had people's signatures, and now people get this in their mailbox, and it's confusing. And we have a lot of elderly people in the community who don't go on the website. This is what they look at. So the communication has been a problem for years. I know it's in the strategic plan. We cannot wait 5 years for communication to improve. That's what I want to say. It needs to get better. 5 years is too long to wait. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. You covered Matt? Okay. Okay.
So, I just wanted to speak specifically about, the known entity that occurred on April 10th, where it was discovered by the district, and the gap in time of notifying the community. I appreciate wanting to get facts and figures and things like that, but I just, from a community member as well as a parent, in the future, should anything like this happen, I just think that prompt communication, just a simple thing like, this was discovered, these are the things that we're doing about it, might be helpful, because rumors spread rampant during the time frame, which led to, you know, kids being concerned, kids being scared. And you're right, none of us know. We know that none of you will intentionally put children in harm. No one's saying that whatsoever. What we're saying is to think about just early communication as quick as possible is best. To be as transparent as possible, as early as you can. We'll head off. You want to get ahead of the rumor though. And unfortunately that didn't happen in this case. There was also some conflation in the communication that came out that talked about the large gym being part of the capital improvement project, which to my mind isn't the case. That's neither here nor there. But there was a statement in there made that it was unknown to the district that there was this other floor, which is not accurate. So that erodes credibility. So just be mindful of easy missteps like that can be avoided. You want to maintain as much credibility as possible. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. You know, we appreciate everybody's comments very much. Just a procedural note on that newsletter. A year ago, the printer was late getting it to us, and you folks didn't receive it until after the budget hearing. So we really worked hard to get that out prior to the budget hearing. I know you said you got yours yesterday. I got mine Saturday. And certainly we apologize that we didn't have the 2 names in there, but we had to go to press in order to get it out. And unfortunately, I don't think we received the 2 petitions until the last day. Is that right?
Right.
Which made it really tight. So just what we're up against procedure. It takes time to turn these things over, and we'll do better next year. Yeah, sure.
And I understand that. I guess what my point is there, in the future, can something be said? Can you go to the website? Do you know what I'm saying? Like maybe put in there that says something like that.
Absolutely. Sure. Absolutely. Yep.
I think that is in there, it's just not on that back page.
Okay. So maybe just, I don't know, I don't know, it just,
It's that, the message about that we had to go to print, that's in that document. But could we put it on our website a month before? Sure. Sure, hey, we've got X positions open and anybody would like to submit a petition, do it ASAP. So, yeah, thank you for that. Okay. This is everybody?
No,
That's
it was Betsy.
Betsy.
Oh, okay.
So we will go to committee reports. Mr. Tonight.
Well, nothing to offer on audit finance. We had the budget discussion tonight, so that's the place for the meeting we had.
Very good. Thank you, gentlemen. Policy we did not meet, but I know there were a couple of, Kathy had a couple of questions about why are X number of, policies being, eliminated. The short answer is, we've already got them elsewhere in policy. And, Kevin, who is an expert in administrivia, it is our pro on this. And worked hard to bring us up to speed on it, but that was the reason, it's elsewhere. The grievance issues are covered in all the contracts, am I right on that? So, that's the answer to that, so.
And one of the goals of the policy committee is to reduce policies that may not be needed because regulations already state this is what needs to happen. So instead of repeating that throughout a non-required policy, we are taking some of those policies out.
The policy book is already, we started, it was like this, we're down to about like this, so we're making headway. So that's it, so I guess that's my, extent of my, report on policy. We're gonna vote on one new policy, tonight. And eliminate the ones that are redundant. And, I think that's it. No questions, we'll go to, personnel.
Under personnel, I'd like to obtain a consent motion for items 8.02 through 8.07.
Second. Okay, questions on any of those?
On 8.06, do we have a plan in place for the
We have,
coverage of treasurer, because it's during the audit?
actually, she actually scheduled the audit around her maternity leave, which we told her she did not need to do. We have reached out to a couple of different people and we're waiting to hear back for coverage.
Anything else? Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Anyone opposed? Unanimous, thank you. And,
Under new business, I'd like to entertain a consent motion for items 9.02 through 9.06.
okay. Questions on, any of those items? Doing election inspectors, just a reminder again, not to mess up like I did earlier. Voting is 8 a.m. till 8 p.m. 8 to 8.
Thank you for answering my question on the policies.
Oh, sure. Okay, everybody good? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Unanimous? Business office?
Under the business office, I'd like to entertain a motion for items 10.02 and 10.03.
Okay. Questions on those two items? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? No one, unanimous, thank you. Brings us to. Executive session.
I'd like to entertain a motion to enter into executive session for one personnel matter.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you, everyone.